Hey everyone, welcome to Remap. My name is Jared, and today I'd like to talk about A Hat in Time. It's this cute little 3D platformer by Gears for Breakfast, and it's funny because this is actually a Kickstarter funded game. It's one of the few Kickstarter games that actually turned out well. I'm sure many of you have. I've supported some games on Kickstarter in the past. And a lot of times it always ends up, they fall behind, they never release, the games just stink. I mean, it's nice finally having a great success story for an indie title on Kickstarter. So just real quick before we get started, these are my opinions and mine alone. And I've been playing on the Series X version of the game. So I've been playing on the Series X port. And this isn't necessarily a game with, spoilers per se, but I'm going to try and save some of my specific comments until the end. So if you're just here for my review, don't worry, I'm going to keep it spoiler free. So when I was sitting down and thinking, how do I want to describe this game? What's the best way of describing it in just a few words? It was funny that I ended up thinking of an alignment chart. So, I've been playing some Dungeons and Dragons recently, and that's a big part of your characters is your alignment. Are you lawful good, lawful neutral, are chaotic evil even, that stuff like that has an important impact on your character. And so I was thinking, all right, how can I describe games on this chart? Where can I add them to? And so, you've got your lawful good games, which I can very easily just throw Mario there and just call it a day. I mean, Super Mario Galaxy, I think that might be the definition of a lawful good game. You're when you're looking at neutral, you got a lot of sports games. Wii Sports might be a great example of true neutral. I mean, I think bowling, Wii Sports bowling might be the most simple neutral game that you can possibly have. And then, I mean, you can look over at the evil categories. You can put some shooters maybe in lawful evil, and then chaotic evil. I mean, GTA. If you can run around blowing up civilians, that's probably chaotic evil. But yeah, the best way to describe A Hat in Time is just by putting it squarely in the chaotic good category where it belongs. Because I mean, this is just a really fun game, with hilarious characters, straightforward platforming. This is a 3D platformer. It's not a particularly challenging game. It's no darker side for Mario Odyssey or Champions Road. It's just a fun, quick 3D platformer with a lot of personality. If you enjoy 3D platformers, this really is a must play. I mean, that's a spoiler for my final, end results of this review. But I mean, it really is. And it's not a game that you have to grind through. I was able to 100% it in just 12 hours. So it's not a game you're going to have to worry about spending a month on. I mean, you can spend a week or heck, even a weekend just having some fun. But by far, the highlight of the game is in the NPCs. Okay, they're all super creative. They have so much unique personality, and each one of them, it shows some real character development. Because you may think one thing about them, and then a few levels later, they're showing you this little side of them. But they all have such a unique personality that it just makes all the levels fun. I mean, this is just a fancy way of saying the game doesn't get stale. But before a chapter or planet has a chance to get stale, the game quickly says, all right, we're going to pull you. We're going to put you in this new area with these new characters. Go have some fun with these guys. They don't give you the chance to get bored of the characters or what's going on, which is a great thing to have. You don't want to be overstaying your welcome with, specific characters or mechanics. And as I mentioned, the platforming, it's very straightforward. Some levels are your traditional Mario 64 style with a with a larger, more open area that you can go explore and collect timepieces, which are the main collectible you're working towards in this game. While others are more linear, Mario Galaxy platforming style, where you have to go from point A to point B. You'll have some enemies in between, maybe a few jumps in between. But each chapter, planet, whatever you want to call it, offers some unique elements that vary in difficulty. As I mentioned, this is not a hard game. This can be enjoyed by almost anyone. And so, some of the variety you get in the platforming is introduced with the hats. Some of them give you different effects, like a grappling hook, and just serve to enhance the platforming in some way. And some of them are just fun. Like the scooter hat might be the most adorable thing I have ever seen in a game. Like it's just fun. I've said it once and I'll say it a million times. It's just a fun game. So the story, there isn't much of an overarching plot, which isn't a big deal in this kind of game. Most of the story is kept in each chapter with the characters you meet. The overarching goals are pretty straightforward. It's just, you've go have to collect all these items. It would have been nice to have some more, but that's nitpicking. I mean, it's your classic 3D platformer collectathon. And then besides the NPCs, by far the most impressive thing about this game was the sound design. Okay, the soundtrack is no joke one of the best soundtracks in a game I have ever heard. Which is incredible considering this is by a really small team. They hired a composer. I'll try not to butcher his name. Pascal Stiefel. Apologies, Pascal, if I butchered your last name. He does just an absolutely incredible job with the sound design. Like I've actually pulled up the soundtrack on my phone on Spotify to listen to a couple of the songs before, which you made a great soundtrack when people that play your game do that. I mean, most games it's like, okay, soundtracks are background music, okay, it's might get intense in boss fights, but it's just a blast. Each important character, has their own theme that'll fit their personality and add a little, life to their character. And I don't know if I've mentioned yet, but this isn't a slow, deliberate game for the most part. I mean, most levels you're going to be, running through an area at high speeds, and the music enhances this stress in a good way. Like it gets you more engrossed into the game. And just a couple notable songs. All of the Time Rift music is excellent, especially Clock Towers Beneath the Sea. And then probably my favorite song, not only because it has a great name, but it's also just a great song, and its use in the game is perfect, is You Are Now Legally a Bird. That's you heard me right. You are now legally a bird, and you have to play this game to know. You'll understand the context when you hear the song in the game, and it's absolutely hilarious. So my only real big complaint from my playthrough was, the Xbox port that I played. It's missing some polish, which obviously this is a small indie team, so it's completely understandable. I'm not going to hold, some texture things against them. The only thing that wasn't fun was the controls on console. It's obvious this was a game designed for mouse and keyboard in mind. And, I'm happy they were able to port it to console, but, there were times where, I would die, not because I stink, but because, camera would just not line up correctly. Camera would be flying all over the place. And then just the biggest thing for me was the controls were just not as tight as I would have hoped on console. And so you know, just for an example, you know, when you're playing a Mario game, you know exactly how he controls. You can hit a triple jump on a tiny little pixel because you know how he controls, you know how he feels. You know, using the Switch Pro controller, it just works. You know what I mean? Like it just feels good controlling him. And on an Xbox controller, I really didn't feel that same responsiveness with a Hat in Time, and it would be very frustrating when I couldn't make, you know, a simple jump just because I had to eyeball it because I wasn't sure, you know, where I would land on a jump just because I didn't feel that same, you know, the controls weren't as tight. And if you've played, you know, 3D platformers before, you know exactly what I mean by tight controls. That's a really important element of the game. Now, with that being said, obviously, this is a small team. This is not, you know, big old Nintendo, and I'm just glad I was able to play this game. So, with all that being said, it's genuinely a really fun game that I would recommend to almost anyone. However, I am going to give it a B plus, like a stupid high B plus, just because, you know, as I mentioned, I was frustrated with the controls numerous times. You know, just because they weren't as tight as I would like on a 3D platformer. Now, is this nitpicking? Yes. Am I biased? Of course I am. The amount of Mario games I've played, I'm totally spoiled. And it's completely unfair, but you know what? It's my podcast. I can do whatever I want. I'm going to give it a B+. Now, if I was playing on PC, it'd probably be an easy A. I mean, you know, if I was actually using, you know, mouse and keyboard. But yeah, if you can't tell by now, if you're on PC, definitely check this game out. If you have any interest in 3D platformers, check this game out. It's a lot of fun. It's a blast. Not a long game. And you'll have a good time with it. Even if you have an Xbox and you want to check out the console version, I'd still recommend playing it. You know, I can tell you will get frustrated, but you know, would I play it again? Yes. I know I'm probably going to revisit this game in a couple years just because it was a lot of fun. So now I want to talk about some of my favorite characters and levels. So if you haven't played, I recommend leaving now and playing it because I want you to be able to enjoy the twists and turns like I did of the game. And so I'm going to pause for a second. Thank you so much for listening if you're departing. Again, you've been listening to Remap. Now, if you're still here, I hope you've played the game. If not, there's nothing I can do about it. So I thought Chapter 2, Battle of the Birds, was definitely the best chapter by far. I mean, you have a disco penguin named DJ Grooves just schmoovin' on him. Like, that man had so much swag, it's not even funny. You cannot measure how much swag this guy has. And the film theme in this chapter was just a blast. I mean, the very first level you play, Dead Bird Studio, you know, you get that invoice because you start knocking stuff over. It's just fun. And then Murder on the Owl Express. You know, you feel like you're in that detective, you know, you're trying to figure it out. And it's funny because I looked it up after I made a guess because, you know, I thought really hard about who I thought did it. And then I looked up afterward, whoever you pick ends up being, you know, the actual murderer, which I thought was hilarious. And so I also thought Subcon Forest, great. Snatcher, you know, might be my favorite character overall. You know, it's this, you know, when you hear a description, you know, big evil guy who takes your soul to, you know, sign contracts, you know, it's going to be this big, spooky, scary. Snatcher's absolutely hilarious. I mean, it's a lot of fun. But it's funny because Subcon Forest had probably my favorite level in it, which it's funny because it's a level that really doesn't have any platforming at all. And so if you've played this game, you'd probably know I'm talking about Queen Vanessa's Manor. And it's funny because I'm playing a 3D platformer, but this level's got like no platforming. It was just such a unique level. I went into it, thinking, oh, I'm going to go through this little mansion, find some stuff, yada, yada, yada. I walk in, music kicks in. Oh my gosh, I am absolutely like terrified. Like I was legitimately stressed out because I was scared by it. Like it was freaking me out for a bit there because I didn't know what was going on. It was crazy. But yeah, I just thought it was funny how in a 3D platformer, my favorite level was a level with no 3D platforming. But speaking of platforming, Alpine Skyline was great for the developers to finally flex their muscle and show off their level design in terms of platforming. Because I mean, if you look at stuff like Mafia Town, there's not a ton of platforming there. I mean, you're just going around collecting stuff. But with levels like the Windmill in Alpine Skyline, now there's a good, even great example of level design for a 3D platformer. I mean, going up higher and higher, you got moving platforms, you got all these jumps, ton of fun, and just a great example of some good level design. And so finally, I was a little disappointed by the finale and how we really don't get any build up. Mustache Girl, hilarious, but I did think there was potential for so much more. I mean, you could have her showing up regularly throughout the story. And actually connect her in some way to the story, because it's just, oh, you go to the finale, oh, she has all the timepieces and everyone has to go to her because she's controlling everything. But there wasn't much, in terms of build up for that. But then again, it's not too big of a deal. This is a quick little 3D platformer, and all the personality is in each individual chapter. But yeah, that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Again, you've been listening to Remap, the gaming podcast. My name is Jared, and I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your day.